Talking with Aleesha. So Talking with Aleesha, it's this kind of series where I talk to just extraordinary women about their lives and women that don't usually get their stories heard. Now, today I have a really exciting guest with me. She's also a fellow STEM, woman in STEM, and it's Miss Prasha Dutra. So hi Prasha, how are you today?
I'm good, how are you? Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much for just taking out the time to be part of Talking with Aleesha and talk to me today. So Prasha actually has this amazing initiative, and it's called HerStemStory, which is just an amazing platform where, as she says herself, she shares extraordinary stories from ordinary women. And that's kind of like your slogan there.
Yes.
Yeah. So, first of all, I just want to ask, just tell us just a bit about yourself and how you even got started with HerStemStory.
Yeah, so of course, you introduced me, and my name is Prasha. I live in Lincoln, Rhode Island. I mean, not Lincoln, Providence, Rhode Island in the U.S. And I work as a quality manager at a manufacturing company. But I started my journey in design engineering and kind of worked my way into operations, which is now kind of running the floor and working with the operators and stuff. And I have a bachelor's in chemical engineering and I have a master's in mechanical engineering. Mm-hmm. So I have a background in engineering.
Ooh, I didn't know I didn't know you did chemical engineering. We're like twins.
Yes.
That's
awesome. So my bachelor's is actually in chemical.
Yeah.
And then chemical engineering, like people don't realize, is like less about chemistry but more about like industry, and it's more like how to design like the boilers and the the agitators and all those big machineries. So while I came to US, I came to pursue aerospace engineering, and because I realized that there are not a lot of jobs for immigrants in aerospace because it's all defense in the US. Like I think 70% of what Boeing and Lockheed, these guys, the work they do is all defense. So they don't they don't sponsor all the time. So it was a tough industry. So I moved my master's majors to mechanical so that I could get more jobs. And I always wanted to work in a factory. So that kind of worked out. And then I started HerStemStory in December of 2017. There are a couple of things that kind of led up to it. One was I wrote an article in my work blog where, my entire team was women at one point. And that was like unheard of. And I'm like, oh my God. And everyone was from different countries. We had a Chinese, we had an African American, we had myself, a Lebanese.
Amazing.
It was great. And someone, from America. It was like United Nations. It was pretty cool.
Yeah.
So we just, so I wrote that, and I was very excited. I was like, oh my God, like this, why is no one talking about it? Why is no one talking about these stories? And then I got married, and all my bridesmaids are also engineers, all of them. So I ended up like thinking, oh my God, I'm surrounded by these fabulous women in STEM, and they do such a great job. I mean, some of these women, they work, at Facebook, at Amgen, huge companies, making six-figure salaries and, really living their dreams. And they are, they can make choices like, oh, I don't want to live in India. I want to live in the US. I want to marry, I married an American. So, I mean, we could make our own choices. And that's how I kind of saw the trend. And I was like, someone has to talk about it. And without even looking up that if someone is talking about it or not, I just looked for a domain name. And I found the domain name at HerStemStory, and I said, okay, it'll be a podcast or it'll be a blog. We'll see. And that's kind of how it started. And I recorded the first episode with just one guest, and I launched it. And I had no guests lined up. I had nothing planned. I was like, oh my God, what I'm going to do now? So I had to beg my friend to be on the show for the second episode, and then her friend on the third episode. Before I was like, oh, like I can't keep doing this. Like I need to, organize this and then kind of get started. So that's how it started. But it was so much fun that I kept doing it, and it's growing slowly but steadily. And I know it's a niche field, so it definitely cannot become huge overnight, or it's very niche. So we have as you mentioned, our slogan used to be extraordinary women, extraordinary stories of ordinary women. But just in 18 months of doing this, I have learned so much about the whole STEM field and minorities and intersectionality and stuff like that, that our new slogan actually is, collecting stories, connecting people. So, we really want to be inclusive, and, because a her can necessarily be anyone. I mean, it just doesn't have to be a woman. It could be LGBTQ. It could be, also the men who support women and are part of the story. So that kind of opens up all those different communications. But I've learned way too much in the last few months. And it's, as you said, it's a very selfish thing in terms of, I learned so much that I can't stop doing it.
Yeah. I completely agree with you. It's kind of like... kind of similar to what I'm doing, and you just meet so many different people and you hear all these amazing stories, and it just opens up your eyes, and you're just like, I did not know that this was an issue, or that people actually, these experiences actually existed. So it's actually, it's amazing, and it's so amazing what you're doing. I've said this just now, but you can really tell that it's your passion and that you want to get all these stories out there, and I guess you want to change what STEM actually stands for and what people actually see when they see someone doing STEM. So you mentioned that you did engineering. Has that always been a passion for you, or has there been any reluctance?
So in India, I grew up in India. So I think I missed that whole part, but I grew up in India, and so I went to my until my bachelor's. I only moved to the US for my master's. So growing up in India, I mean, it's a famous thing that you either become an engineer or you become a doctor. So obviously you have to pick your choice, or you go into like accounting and stuff, and you're not a good person, or you're not good at school because you couldn't cut it in engineering or doctors, which is crazy to me. So I was always interested. I was very good at math. I loved math. I think for most part of my life, I still miss math. Actually, someone posted on Instagram, they were struggling with a math problem in integration or something, and I was shocked that all of it came back, and I was able to help them out. I was like, oh my God, I thought I forgot all this, but I was excited. But I don't get to do math as much as I would like. But I love math. And then engineering was obviously, one of the only few options that we were given. But I also used to watch like How It's Made. My dad was a big fan of that show. Would watch it all the time. So factories were also a big part that, oh my God, I want to work. So I actually got into chemical engineering thinking I'm going to work at L'Oreal. Like I always wanted to work in like the cosmetics field. But as the chemical engineering went through, I got involved in like a lot of projects in aerospace. So that's the reason I kind of, had to transition out of it. But I still work. Where I work is we use a lot of chemical engineering also. So so engineering was always like one of the options. One of the only options actually.
I was actually surprised because I was born here, but my family's originally from Pakistan, and their cultures are pretty similar. So in Asia, there isn't this issue where there's not enough women going into engineering. It's like, as you said, it's the only two options, where in America or in England, there's this kind of contrast where not enough women go for these kind of subjects. So it's just, as a woman that's lived in India and studied in India, and as a woman that studied in US, have you noticed any differences between the two experiences?
It's weird. There are a lot of differences and a lot of similarities. I think in India, the patriarchy is more in your face in terms of, okay, they want you to go to school, they want you to study, they want you to become a doctor. Sometimes because they want you to marry a doctor. It's not necessarily because they care about you. It's more like, oh, a doctor won't marry you because you're not a doctor. So I know a lot of families who do that. And then, so it's not, I don't know if it is, in India, I think it's because different reasons that they are so open to women education just in the cities. I don't think rural India is probably still struggling with getting away from child marriages and stuff like that. So I think for India and Pakistan both, because they were the same country like literally 60 years ago. So I think there's so many different like diversity within the country in terms of just the difference between rich and poor and city and rural. But in the end, I think patriarchy is in your face all the time in terms of oh, you have to get married, you have to do this, you have to be home by 7, you have to listen to your husband or father, or there's no like you don't rebel or dream big or nothing like that. You just stay in your lane. You do all this, but you do all this for the end purpose of marrying someone. I mean, actually my family wasn't like that because my parents already had a love marriage, and we were more liberal in terms of that. But like our family did it because of financial freedom. But I don't think that as a society they do that. So you see that in schools and colleges and stuff like that, where women are like, just stay in the lane, get all the straight A's and you'll marry someone. And I know so many of my classmates who got degrees, who got jobs, but as soon as they got married, they left everything, went home, that's it. And a lot of people don't know, but India, even though we have so much, probably have more women in STEM as compared to US maybe, but in the end, we have the highest like dropout ratio, which means after like 5 years, women just leave. A lot of them work in professorship, like so in academia, which is I think extremely opposite of the US. I mean, I think academia in India is all about women. Like women are lecturers, women are teachers. I think we had 2 professors who were men in engineering, 2 or 3. So because academia is so flexible in terms of timing, and you only have a few classes and stuff like that. So that was definitely different. But in the US, I think the patriarchy is very subtle, and you don't see it in your face all the time. Oh yeah, you can do anything, but it's very underlying, like mansplaining. Like if you're in meetings, people won't let you talk, or people just assuming like, oh, you can't be an engineer. But just I think it's more subtle. So the also less women come to engineering fields, because here it's like you don't need a profession to marry anyone. I mean, you could do anything you want. So I think and they don't have guidance also from families like we do. So I think it's interesting. I think the problem is still the same. I think it's still that we're not empowering our women to be financially independent and take their own decisions and do their own thing. We're still imposing these, either we say it out loud in the Asian countries, or we say it like, we don't promote you, or you're not ready, or we'll give you only 6 weeks of maternity leave. I mean, India has a year-long maternity leave, and I'm like, oh, and even the UK has more. Canada has a year. US is still 6 weeks. So what message are we sending? I don't care about you, and I don't want you to come back to work, So I think it's so it's a very complex problem.
It is.
But those are my experiences. I think it's more subtle here, much more difficult to fight in terms of even noticing it, because before the show I didn't even know any of these terms. I didn't know what was more systemic versus what was like really in your face. But India is in that term a little different.
No, I completely agree with what you're saying, and the experiences that women have lived, because I've seen that like secondhand. And even if you do get a job, and as you said, you're married, and back home you're pretty much discouraged, because it's like you can either have a job or look after your family. It's like you can't really combine the two. And here in like the West, I guess, women still end up doing more of the housework, and they still end up taking care of the children more. But then they're expected to be full-time, as you said, at work, and you don't really get that leeway. It's like you have to be in it all, or you can't. So a lot of times women do have to choose between their family life and their career, and that's a big reason why women don't get into those higher positions as well, as we see. So you've probably, as you said, you've spoken to so many different types of women in the STEM field. Are there any stories that really stand out, or is there something that you were so surprised to hear that you would like to share?
That's a great question. I think a lot of stories, obviously all of them are very special. All of them have their own place. Not one is better than the other, but I think a couple of them that really stuck with me is, one of the childhood stories that stuck with me was, it's Joy Wolfram. She is the director of the lab at Mayo Clinic, and she's working in nanotechnology to cure cancer. And her childhood story of getting interested in science is so fun, because her dog got sick, and they took it to the vet, and then the doctor showed her like the microbes, and just under the UV light, and like this is what it looks like, and she just freaked out, and she wanted to take it home to play with it, and the vet was nice enough to give it to her, and then she went home, and she was 12, and so she just did whatever she had to do. But once she showed the UV light on it, like the fridge was all filled with microbes, because obviously there's a lot of bacteria in the fridge. And so she just declared to her family, "Oh my God, our fridge has a lot of bacteria. It's all gross. We can't eat from here." And that's kind of how she started on the becoming a bio chemist. I think she's a biochemist, but even a nanotechnologist, right? So that story is very fun. I spoke to Abigail Harrison, who's astronaut Abby, and she's amazing. Her story is just so. Obviously, the reason I started the show was to create more role models of people who identify with people. Mm-hmm. Abigail is hard to identify in terms of she's just amazing. She's. I don't think everyone can work that hard to be like Abby, but she's worked very hard. She has a very disciplined life, and she just got her license for a pilot, and all that great stuff. So her story is amazing. Her story started with Twitter. She had a project, and she tweeted when she was 12. And she asked NASA astronauts or scientists that help her with the project, and that's kind of how she started on this path of just being an ambassador for NASA and an ambassador for just the whole space program. And she has actually sent a lot of experiments to space station, and she's actually mentored by an astronaut. So she has a great story of just using social media so well, and she has 1 million followers all over the social media platforms. But pretty cool stories. And now she does camps for people underprivileged kids. She raises money through her Mars organization, and she sends all these people to the space camp at NASA. People who can't afford to go there, so which is, I think, very, very cool. So that's a great story. And I think finally the last one I would say is my discussion with this guy for He for She series, where we interviewed men in January, and I spoke to Brian Ballantyne, and he is a D&I expert in the UK, and he works for a big corporation as a senior diversity inclusion manager, and he talks at length about how white men can support this, and why white men need to be a part of this, because they are the solution. If we talk in, you talking to me talking to you, great. I mean, we can exchange notes and share experiences, but the real change will come when we have, white males sitting here and saying, this is the reason I don't do this, or this is the reason I didn't realize it, or this is the reason we can't do it, but he's a big proponent of breaking echo chambers, and kind of opening these doors and saying, okay, let's all work together to solve the problem, and not just talk behind people's back. I mean, we're kind of talking behind their back, because we're just saying they're bad or they're wrong. And I think that was the missing piece in the feminist movement. I don't know much about it because I haven't read a lot about it. Yeah. But from what I understand, feminism was, an activism. It was more so getting basic human rights, right? So that was a fight that needed to be fought the way it did. But now we're fighting more subtle things, and more systemic. But now I think we need all hands on deck in terms of supporting each other, because if you tell a white male that your daughter or your wife has to face this, and this, then I doubt that they will not do anything about it, No. But we need to obviously have these people talk about it and advocate, plus make a change, because I don't think you and I can change it as quickly as we would like, So
how do you you touched upon it? How do you reckon we can get more males or more people in privilege, involved in these conversations?
Just talk to them, literally, like we did for the show. Let's just be like, you'll find so many of them, especially on Twitter. It's a great platform to find them. Instagram, I haven't been able to find them so much on Instagram, but you could just be like, have a conversation with your husband or boyfriend or father and be like, hey, what do you think about this? Like, would you talk to us about it? How can you be a part of the solution? And then it'll be a great debate, because it'll bring out a lot of points of why are you doing it? Why does it matter? So in my case, even I didn't know why it mattered for the longest time. I mean, I still don't know. I'm still figuring it out. But for me, it opened my eyes to the fact that, diversity and inclusion is a part of businesses. It's also a part of economy, and it's also a part of the survival of the human race, because, you have these huge problems like cancer and AIDS and this and that, and your problems are just going to get bigger from here. How are you going to solve it unless you don't have everyone involved in the solution? So, I think we're moving from a divided world to a more connected world.
Yeah,
and
definitely.
If you were to divide and rule, sure, you just have the privileged go against the poor. But if you're going to be more connected, then you can't, you and I can raise our voices. I mean, we live in a fantastic time that it's free media. We could do anything we want. And there is an audience for everything you want, right? Mm-hmm. So I think the more we get empowered in terms of how we can share our voice, the more our problems will come to surface and we'll need to solve it. But yeah, you can just literally talk to people like your PIs or even your managers. They don't realize that they are supporting you. But if you show them, then be like, thank you for supporting me, because, there are not a lot of white managers who would do this. So thank you. And, it's a little off-putting because people don't like to talk about race, but it's important. I think it's very important to recognize people who are helping you. I guess that's a great place to start. Just recognize the men who have supported you. That's the reason I started that series. And, my show is literally called HerStemStory. So I was like, oh my God, I'm going to get so much backlash for this. But people loved that series. It was great. And it was a great conversation. These people are doing, oh my God, some of them have their own nonprofits, organizations, all geared towards women. And it's there is a conference called Dads in STEM. Did you know that?
No,
it's literally just for fathers who are trying to build a more equal STEM profession. STEM landscape for their daughters.
For their daughters.
It's
That's amazing.
Crazy.
That is
so
crazy,
cute.
yeah. Yeah, and people like that, I guess we want their voices to be heard more as well, because we want their opinions and views and how they see it.
Yeah.
You made some really important points, and that was actually one of the questions that I was going to ask as well. How do we get more male voices? And as you said before, it is called HerStemStory, but I think everyone who's an ally of females and women in STEM deserves to it's important to get everyone's voices, and it's important to see, as you said before, what their opinions is, because a lot of times people don't realize that there's even an issue. Like when I was growing up, especially when I was younger, I thought racism was a thing in the past, or gender inequality is a thing in the past, everyone's equal. But it's when you hear about things and when you've experienced things firsthand, it's because they haven't experienced things firsthand. That's why they don't realize. One of the reasons why you started HerStemStory is because you're a woman as well. If you were a man, then it would have been a completely different experience, and it wouldn't have even crossed your mind. So having platforms like yourself is so important. What about being a woman of color in America and in engineering and in industry as well? How's that experience been? Have you experienced it?
Yeah, so no, I don't even realize. I have been very blessed to be around people that don't see, at least I don't think they see color. But I'd never. I think I have the reason I've stayed with the employer that I'm with is just because of that, and they were so supportive in getting my immigrations and help with that stuff. Yeah. Also at the time, my VP, vice president, was from India, and he, I don't know about you, but a lot of Indians have actually, or Indians, Pakistani subcontinent people have faced more retaliation from their own people, because people get very competitive and they don't want you to grow, and a lot of, especially professors, do this all the time. They will make the classes the hardest. They'll be, they'll give you a hard time. Oh my God. At least the people who came here in the 70s really need to grow up, because more people are coming, and it's hard to, probably for them, to see people coming and growing faster than they did. But anyway, but I was very lucky. Like my vice president was an Indian, and he was very, very nice, and he was very inclusive. But not only because he was Indian, everyone was like that. I don't think anyone ever. I know when I went to a small town, because I moved a lot with my job, and I lived in a small town in Pennsylvania, Williamsport, and this is, almost Amish country, which is Amish are literally like 30 minutes from where we were. And it was like, that was one town that they had never worked with an Indian. Like, they never worked with an Indian. They were all white people. They were ignorant in terms of just, they didn't have the knowledge or the understanding of the rest of the world. And they would make comments like, not comments, but they were curious. And so I took it as curiosity. I don't think they meant to be, difficult. I think they just didn't know. So they were like very curious. They're like, they would make fun of me. They were like, oh, do you guys ride elephants everywhere? And, stuff like that. It was totally very, very casual, and I never minded. But I educated them, and they were very, they were very open, and they learned so much, and they would try all the Indian food I would make, and they were very, very nice. And I think overall my experience has been the same with all Caucasian people, in terms of, even I have had a huge group of African American friends who didn't know anything about Indian culture, and we realized that there's so much similarities in African food and Indian food, and all that great stuff. So I think everyone just wants to know more. Some people are more open in asking questions. Others maybe are more ignorant and don't want to hear it. But I've never faced any of those. And now my in-laws are obviously they're from my mother-in-law is from Italy. My father-in-law is a Portuguese by descent. But it's just people will always, they always want to be nice, and I think they always want to be valued, and we all have same. It's so funny that we all just have fun in the same kind of things, like spending time with family, cooking. It's the same things. It's like, birthday presents and cakes and stuff like that. So I think people are the same at the basic level, and I've been lucky enough not to have ever faced that. Obviously once in a while you'd hear a comment that you don't want to hear, but you got to brush it off. And I think a lot of people get stuck on that comment, and there's, I'll get a little sidetracked, but there's, our brain has prefrontal cortex, and there is a part of our brain that actually filters all the knowledge that's thrown at us, all the things, all the information. It filters everything so that we can live. Otherwise we'll die. I mean, there's so many sounds and colors and stuff. But if you focus on the bad, your filter is going to filter all the bad stuff. So your experience is going to be defined by that filter. And it's very important to not focus on that, and then focus on all the good things. So then you'll be like, oh, what bad experience? I never had a bad experience, because you're filtering your life as you go through it with that filter. Now, that doesn't excuse people who are not being nice to you, right? But I really don't think you can solve anything with negativity. I mean, you can bash people out, and you can shame them. You can obviously take them to court and do the right thing. But if you focus on that part of your life and let it dictate the rest of your life, it'll just be a difficult way to live. So I choose to see all the good in the world, and I am lucky that I think I have all the good in the world that comes with the color, and I never, ever feel like I'm a person of color. I just don't, which is great.
That's good. Yeah, I feel like it is important to think on the positive side, but it is also important to be realistic in some instances if you do face backlash. But I feel like my experience, and maybe it's just because I'm lucky, it's been pretty, like, I haven't been specifically targeted because I am a woman in color, but I do know of issues and circumstances where someone might be. But I agree with like your situation and your life and your experiences has been positive, and it's always good to see, because in the media a lot you do see a lot of hatred, especially a lot of polarization between races, between religions and ideas. So it's good to see that not everyone lives in
the
that
same
kind
experiences.
Of
Definitely. I mean, I think we grew up in India, and India is a very secular country, so we never even I mean, we have mosques everywhere, temples right next to it. We have, a church literally behind it. And, we were always told to bow our heads down no matter what place of worship it is. You always bow your head. You always be respectful. And I think Indian culture in that terms has created it's a very coexisting culture. And again, media may not showcase it really well, especially when it comes to Hindu-Muslim riots and stuff like that. And I lived there 24 years and I never saw any of that. And, I had Muslim friends, I had a Christian friend. I went to a Catholic school, I went to a Protestant school, and we used to go to Ajmer Sharif, the Dargah in Ajmer. I mean, the Sufi Dargah. It's huge. I mean, my dad believed in it so much. It was crazy. I mean, but it doesn't mean any, faith doesn't have to become, has to be tagged. I mean, faith is faith.
And it doesn't mean that you'd have to pit people against each other just because
and I don't think people want to be pitted against each other. I think there's just too much loss of humanity in those circumstances. But politics has been very heavy on that. Media has been heavy on that, on polarization. And I think we're finally getting to a place where maybe it's going to be less and less because, as we said, our voices are heard, and at least we have an audience that wants to hear our experience. And I think it's just coexisting respectfully. Is the least we can do, just, we don't have to understand, there's no need to justify or understand, why do they worship this? And why do you worship a stone? And why do you worship an idol? And why do you worship fire? And you just don't have to. I mean, it's not none of your business, you just respect and that's it. So,
that is true though. Yeah, it's true. And especially, I'm just going to touch on this in the India media and in the Pakistani media as well, just because of the recent elections in India. There's been a lot of polarization right now with India's new president coming in and all of that.
That's why I don't watch news. Don't watch news. That's your solution to everything.
So it's been interesting to see just because especially now between Pakistan and India, I feel like that as and I don't know how Muslims are in India now, what they're experiencing, but you have heard stories where, it's like the polarization where it's just...
They just pick one story and they pitch it against everyone, like they did with the rape case in India that happened in 2012 or something, right? So the Nirbhaya rape case, they call it. And she was, raped on the Christmas night and the eve of Christmas or whatever. And they showed, for 10 years, I think BBC did a documentary, The Daughters of India, showing just, oh my God, India is just the worst place to be, blah, blah, which is fine. I mean, that's their findings and that's their agenda with the movie. But they just came out with a show called Delhi Crime on Netflix, showing the work that the cops did. And it's incredible. It's like, dude, where was all this? These are all actual facts from actual findings, actual written, recorded reports. And they haven't dramatized it. I mean, not at all. I mean, it's not even, and they didn't even show the crime. They chose not to show the crime because, this is how you polarize people, or this is how you change how people see, different incidents. And it's great that now we are at a place where we can decide, we can see through this agenda that, okay, not every media thrown at me is true. I need to make my own choices and decisions, and maybe my own experiences should dictate what I think about a situation, And I think, from that point of view, in Modi, that he is elected, he's very vocal about his religion and his whole stance about being religious, and which is again, to each his own. But I also think that he cares about India in terms of economy and in terms of diplomatic relationships with other countries. I mean, China had bullied us for years and years and years. We were always bullied by the U.S. I mean, U.S. bullies everyone, but he's forging those diplomatic relationships, which again, if you see it from one side, it's a great thing. Another, maybe not the best. But also, India didn't have any leaders. I mean, who else was there? So that's same like Trump, right? I mean, when Trump won, I mean, it's probably the worst thing that happened. But who was against him? I mean, Democrats are going to hate me for this, but Hillary was a great candidate, but the Clintons didn't have a great name, in all these states that are Republican. I mean, I was in Texas when this happened, and people told me the stories that when Clinton did the NAFTA agreement, and these people lost their jobs I mean, people who worked with me, they didn't have a job for 3 years. They're like, how do you expect me to vote for Clinton if he took my job away? You know, that's their side of the story. But I feel like there's just always 1,800 sides of the story. And news just wants you to panic. And, you know, there's no need to panic unless you keep doing what you're doing. And in today's world, you have so much more media to consume. Like, there's no need for anyone to be watching the regular news, you know, and choose your own media. So, I feel like, you know, again, I don't know. I may have spoken more about politics than I intend to. So
no, it's interesting.
Please ignore all my ignorance.
No, it's fine. No, it's interesting to see just different perspectives and different point of views. And as you said, one, media tries to sensationalize. It's a kind of business. They're trying to sell headlines. So if we divert a bit more to the STEM side now, because we have gone in a bit. No, don't apologize. I don't know how it's begun. I think it's good though that we're talking about different issues.
It's a good topic.
Yeah.
Somebody was posting yesterday. They said, running away from political matters is not like we should talk about politics. I think it's also very scary. But I guess if you and I don't talk about it, then who's going to elect the next people? Yeah.
What do you think are some ways to encourage like more younger girls to get into STEM and get their passion in subjects like engineering or maths or chemistry? So
I think they should. I think the school systems are doing a good job now with STEM programs, and I know UK and Australia are big on this. And I think, of course, the stories that we're sharing, the first intent was to have girls listen to it. But the more I do this, I feel like maybe this is not the perfect one for them, because this is more for you and me, more, middle-aged careers or middle careers in terms of school or academia, and women sharing their experiences and more complex experiences than what like teenage girls can probably interpret. But then, that's just our show. But there are tons of shows and tons of things to do in terms of toys and clothing and all that stuff. Like, if you stop a girl from like doing something, like, don't do that. I mean, let her get hurt.
Yeah.
I mean, let her get hurt or let her fail, let her make mistakes, let her try. And, engineering or STEM or no STEM, I mean, it doesn't matter. I mean, our intent is not to become, not everyone should be in STEM, because if everyone's in STEM, this world will be very boring. I mean, it will be. You'll not have music, you'll not have dance, you'll not have theater, TV, So, we don't want everyone to be in STEM, but we do want people to find their own, place in this world and hopefully be more, more educated in terms of what's possible for them, and not just be stereotyped or boxed into one category. Like, like the last guest that we interviewed, she said, I went into arts thinking I'm good at arts, so I can't be good at science. So I never gave science a shot. So, but then her undergrad school had programs where you had to take science courses. So with an arts major, you had to take a course in biology and, and stuff like that. And that kind of opened her eyes. So, again, not putting people in boxes is probably the best way you can start. And I've always heard great stories of women getting into STEM because of their fathers. And I think fathers can do so much in making that possible, because, it's just a very special bond there. So, I mean, if dads are watching, they can do a lot of stuff. Just keep them curious and don't coddle them too much.
That's amazing points. Because I feel like you put like sometimes people put down prejudices on children, and they're like, oh, people should be this way and that. But as you said, it should be more open and free, and people should experiment and try things, and that's how more passion grows as well, because you might be really interested in art or drama or science or history. So it's good to get a good exposure of all these different subjects whilst you're growing up, so you really know what your true passion is. So more about HerStemStory. What are your future plans? Like, I know you have events now, and you have a reading.
So before I answer this, we would have to cut off at 10 or 10:05 because I have another appointment after this. So this probably
this is the last question.
Let's wrap up. Okay. So I think we have a lot of future plans. So I do a lot of speaking. I love speaking. I think public speaking is finally where I want to do a lot more. It's wonderful to see people in person and connect and stuff like that. So that's the events kind of thing that you're seeing. But we definitely want to do more live podcasts, which is a great thing to have, with panels. But, we're doing a multi-host platform, so we're growing our hosts base, and we're going to have more and more hosts who can then interview more and more women. We do it through STEM Advocacy Institute, who are our parent organization. It's a nonprofit think tank based in Cambridge, Massachusetts, and they do a SAI Fellows program where they recruit fellows every 6 months, and one of these fellows is, if they're in podcasting, they kind of get assigned. They will get assigned to me. And then we'll train them, we'll give them the equipment so they can start their own show. But in return, they will interview 3 to 4 people for us. But it's pretty cool because you get sponsored for your show. And, we take care of the website, we take care of your equipment, and we give you about 6 or 7 weeks of training and what you need to do this well. And we kind of hold your hand all the way up to your recording. And so Catherine is the first one, who's the founder of Grad Self Care, and her podcast is called Endo Disruptors, which is she's interviewing women in endocrinology. So she was our test, our hamster. So we kind of tried it on her, and she absolutely loves it, and she's already growing. She doesn't even have the show yet, but she's doing really well. But yeah, that's the whole, idea. I don't know how much, we definitely need to apply for grants and we do all that because we need some cash coming in. We just launched our merchandise yesterday, so we have some stickers. We're going to have some, T-shirts and stuff like that because I love our new artwork. It's beautiful. It has different women with different, skin colors and hairstyles and stuff like that, which is pretty cool. And so, we're hoping that, again, we have a little team now, a few people helping out, which makes, a world's difference because this is exactly what diversity is, right? Different perspectives coming in together, solving issues or solving problems. And they don't have to be the biggest problems. They're little problems like, oh, how do you make the background all transparent? And, how do you do this? How do you do that? It's little stuff, but it kind of adds up. And the team is freaking diverse. I mean, we have everyone. We have Asian, we have African American, we have a white girl, myself, and someone from Dubai, and it's just so cool. I think it's so cool. And we didn't do anything. It was natural. Yeah, it was so natural. I think people with different affinities, without a bias, tend to come together, and they don't even realize it. And so we realized it way after. We're like, wait, what? You just look back and then you don't think about it, which is great. I think that's how the world should be. We shouldn't have to think about this. This should come naturally, and we should be able to have more diverse voices. So that's
great. It's amazing to see your future plans. I'm always going to be a supporter, so it's exciting to see how HerStemStory is going to grow. And I think it's time to just kind of wrap it up. Do you have any other questions, or do you have anything you wanted to add, or?
No, thank you again for doing all you do, and I obviously love following your content. So special, you can't forget it. It's very unique to you. You have built a brand, which is great. And again, thank you for doing it.
No, you're welcome.
With everyone in the world, and it's pretty sweet. So I absolutely enjoy your content. So thank you, and we'd love to have you on the show.
Yeah, I'd love to be a part.
And we'll have you on the show.
Yeah, I'd love to be a part of it. Thank you so much for your time.